All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you guys for joining us today. And I know some of you will be watching on the YouTube channel later. Today, our Overachievers Club is meeting, and today's topic, based on a request that we had from last week, is that we were going to review listing presentations. So today, what I'm going to share with you guys is my listing presentation script. It's one that I put together for a team that I worked on, and I worked on it for about 6 months, presented it to the team. We made some tweaks, and I've been tweaking it ever since, like just making little adjustments here and there. As a matter of fact, I went into it this morning and made some more adjustments just because there's things that are always changing. One of the changes that I made is that the pricing situation I used to give said that a house in Rancho Mirage was worth $450,000, and that really dates me because I don't know that we find too many of those anymore. So I changed the number to $900,000 because I thought that was more appropriate. But other little things like that, you always like once you guys get a copy of this, which I'll be sending out to everybody when I send out the recording. I'll give you guys the Word document that I have that includes the script and some other helpful things. You know, it shouldn't just go on a shelf somewhere. You want it to be something that you are always making edits to, always making changes to, and just keeping it fresh. And the biggest thing is that anytime you come up against an objection, you want to include that. How you're going to overcome the objection, you're going to want to include that in your listing presentation, so that you don't give everybody you don't have to overcome every objection in every appointment, but you want to be prepared to do so, because whatever the objection is that gets thrown at you, you want to make sure that you have something for that. So before we get started, do you guys have any questions, or is there anything else that you wanted to ask before we get into the meat of this, or anything else you guys want to get out of it today? Anything else that you're looking to accomplish other than being prepared when you get a listing appointment and feeling confident going into that appointment,
Yeah.
right? I always say that, like, and even for me, when I don't know what to do with the appointment, it makes it really hard to go get one, right? So if there's somebody out there, let's just say somebody I wanted to recruit, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with them when I get them here, it makes it really hard for me to make that phone call. If I want, if I don't have any idea what I'm going to do to present my listing presentation, makes it really hard to go out and get that listing appointment. So I hope that at the end of today, what you will have is more confidence and the ability to take this thing and really make it your own. One thing I'll share with you before we get into this listing presentation, though, is that I want you to be careful about changing it. There are some things that there's one script that I was given my very beginning into real estate, and it was an expired script, and it said your listing has come up on the MLS as expired. So undoubtedly, I'm calling you to find out when you'd be willing to hire the right agent. Well, I hated the word undoubtedly, and I thought it was stupid, and I didn't think it needed to be there, so I took it out. And what I learned later when I took a linguistics class, that undoubtedly was the most powerful word in the sentence. It told the client that there was a reason I was calling them, and it put that in their head as their own thought. And so there's other words you can use. Obviously was a word that I felt more comfortable with. I didn't like undoubtedly, but I liked the word obviously. So I used that word instead. So you can make changes to these scripts. Just be aware that if you're taking words out, you might be changing the most powerful part of the sentence. I did it for a long time, and so now I'm very careful when I do that. So let's go ahead and get started. If there's other questions, you guys can ask them as we go.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is, was there a question? Okay.
No.
I'm gonna go ahead and share screen, so you guys should be able now to see the listing presentation. Hold on, what do you guys?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So it says the Zen group at the top of it. Like I said, this was for when I had a team. So you guys can take my name out of it. Like I said, when I send it to you guys, you can change it up and you can put your own name on it, or you can put your own team name on it if you want to. So the very first thing that this script includes is, and it includes a lot of things, not just the script. I'll scroll through real quick. Everything in yellow are the words you're going to say. Everything that's not in yellow are the things you're going to do. So it's almost like 50-50, like you're doing things and saying things here, but a lot of it is asking questions that you're going to listen to and really make sure that you're paying attention to what the client's saying. Go ahead, Ken.
I have a copy of it here, and I was just wondering,
That's right.
If anything's changed.
The price in Rancho Mirage.
No, everything is same,
you'll
right?
still get a new copy of it, but yeah, it's fairly similar to what you've got in front of you. As a matter of fact, I just pulled out the listing presentation packet that I made from the class that you took that you got that at, and so I've got the same one sitting in here, and it's pretty similar. There's just a couple little changes I've made to update it, and you'll get that new one later. So you'll get that at the end of the class. Okay, so what we're going to do is, before we go to this listing appointment, what are we going to take with us? Now, I want to just say that this listing presentation takes into account that you're going to be sitting in front of the client. And I know that doesn't always happen. It doesn't always work that way. Most of the time when we go in to see a property, there's going to be somebody there to show it to us, but sometimes they mail us a key. Sometimes the neighbor has a key. Sometimes, you're not always sitting with the client. So you may have to take do some tricky things in order to get all of this stuff in front of the client, but we're just going to assume for this class's sake that you're going to be sitting in front of somebody. So what you're going to take with you are two things. You're going to take a listing presentation folder, and that's going to be this guy. Right? It's going to be one of these that we have in the office that you guys can come get anytime that you want. And again, this is if you're in front of them. If you're not in front of them, you may mail it to them in advance. If you do, I would suggest still putting it together in one of these folders and sending it to them. And what we're talking about here is what you're going to put on the left side of the folder versus the right side of the folder. And the reason for that, like I'm so specific about it, is because there's an order in which I'm going to go through things. The very first thing that you're going to want to do is have a copy of a tax record. And I think I've got one right here. It's just the thing that you pull off of Realist on the MLS. The reason that we want that is because that tells me whose name I should be putting into the listing agreement that I typed and I'm bringing with me, right? I know we do a lot of stuff electronically now, and if you decide that you just want to go to the listing appointment, collect some information and send them the contract later, that's okay. I'm fine with that. I personally like to take the paper with me. I like to sit down, especially with somebody that may not be as computer savvy. I prefer, and a lot of my clients tend to be that way, I like to take the paper with me and just sit down and go through the whole thing. But either way, I want to take a copy of the tax record, and this one is for the client. I'm going to give this to the client because I want them to review it, and I'm going to ask them to tell me, is there anything on here that doesn't look right to you? Because a lot of times we find that the square footage isn't right. Sometimes it's been changed during the building, during the construction of the property. Sometimes it's been changed after, and the county just doesn't have it correct. Sometimes bedroom, bathroom counts are off. Sometimes the name on the tax record is incorrect. That's not very often, but normally what I want to do is make sure it matches the names of the people that are at the appointment with me. If there's somebody on the tax record that I don't have in front of me, that means that I'm going to need to get additional signatures, and I'm going to need to get additional permission. So normally we ask to have all those decision makers at the appointment, but this tax record just tells you a lot. So it should be the first thing you do anytime that you're going to go out to a listing appointment, is pull this, and also pull that property profile. That's somewhere else. That's in your file. Again, the stuff that we're talking about right now is the stuff that you're going to give to the client. The next thing I have on the list, I've crossed out total market overview. It's something that my team used to do, where we had a list of all of the cities in the Coachella Valley, and each one of us on the team was responsible for a different city, and we compiled all the information each week. It's a lot, so I'm not going to go into that with you guys today, but the next thing that I have here that you're going to want to put in is your CMA. So you're going to have your comps that you're going to pull from the multiple listing service. That's going to be on the left side of the folder. And the next thing that you might want to have, I know I've got one in here someplace, but I'm not going to dig around and find it, is a listing net sheet. You can get that from escrow. Reach out to Joshua Tree Escrow, tell them you need a net sheet, and they're going to give you a little list of 4 or 5 things they need from you. It's like, is it in an HOA? Is it on fee land or lease land? And a couple other questions like that. Is there a home warranty? And they will set up a net sheet for you so that you can show the seller what they're going to net. If you don't know the amount that's left to be paid on the loan, I just don't generally suggest leaving that piece of it out, and you would show what they would net, and then they have to deduct whatever the amount of the loan is off of that. So those pieces you can all take care of with escrow, but reach out to them and they can help you get that net sheet. The next piece is the team. I had a team bio and a little team brochure. What I also suggest for some of you guys is doing some of the lifestyle postcards that you have. I'm going to grab one here that I know was for one of our agents. When you guys, if you guys have a really good lifestyle postcard like this was one of them that somebody did. Put some of your old marketing pieces in there. I've got some of my old postcards that I like to throw into my listing presentations so that they can see what kind of marketing pieces are going to go out and what they look like. You also have the ability to go ahead and put in a bound listing presentation. And that is going to come from Moxie. So you'll get with Jeff. He can show you how to use that listing presentation tool. Ken, you've already learned how to use it. I know you sat in on the class with me when we learned how to use it together.
Right.
Have one of those pulled together. And if you want one bound, I have a binding machine in the office. We can help you do that to put that together in a really nice fashion. Or you can stop by Kinko's or Staples and they can help you with it as well if it's on a weekend or no one's around. You also, I have in here to pull your own CMA for yourself if it looks good. If not, pull it for the company. Pull the entire company's CMA for a certain area, and I can help you with that to kind of get one that'll end up looking good so that it shows lots of sales in the particular area that you're looking for. Like I said, additional marketing materials and samples, and then a listing schedule. I like to go over a listing schedule. Let me see if I thought I just pulled it up.
Hey, Steph.
Oh, here it is. Hey, Jeff. Here it is.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
With the Moxie the presentation, you know, you do get to put comps in there as well. So you can already have an idea if you're going to pull the comps from your MLS. You can have an idea of what comps to pick with your presentation, but they'll be included in that presentation.
Absolutely. Let me see if I can show you guys that. Hold on one sec. Where did it go? There was, darn it. I can't see it. Hold on. I wanted to show you this thing. There it is. Okay. So let me show you this. It is just a listing schedule basically of, and you guys can put this together for yourself. I'll send you guys this one so you have it as well. But this is just a little schedule that shows the client what's going to happen. Review and sign listing agreement, disclosures, review and discuss the marketing plan, schedule photos. We used to take our own photos. This is from like a long time ago when sometimes we would take our own pictures, but you schedule photography now. And then day 2, what's going to happen? Day 3, it just kind of gives them a little bit of a timeline so that they know what's going to happen. Because a lot of times we leave that listing appointment, we go get in the car, we know what to do next, but do they know what happens next? This piece can help a lot with alleviating some of those frustrated phone calls from people not knowing what's going on. So that's a piece. And I just like put that, I take it and move it to the front of the brochure of the package so that we pull it out, talk about it, and then I leave that in there for them so that they have it in, like when they first open that folder, I want it to be the first thing they see so they know exactly what's going to happen. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a manila folder for myself, and this is just going to be for me. I like a manila folder for myself because I like to be able to take notes. It's where I put some of my marketing remarks or even just showing instructions or other things. A lot of times I will scribble onto the folder. And this is again, if you're at the property and you're at the house with them. Inside that folder, I'm going to have a couple things. There's a little client questionnaire I used to like to use, which was like, how quickly do you need to sell your home? What happens if it doesn't sell? And just some questions to get them kind of thinking about that sales process and what their goals are. The next thing I include is another tax record. I cannot tell you how many times I've taken a tax record, put notes on it and left it with the client, and then I walk out without it and don't have it. So remember to bring one for yourself as well so that you have that for you in your file. You'll have another copy of the CMA. That's another thing I have done is I have taken comps and I've given them to a client and I've left without a copy of it. And then they reference it later and I can't. So just to make sure to make a copy of that stuff for yourself. You'll want to get a copy of the property profile. And that's going to come from the title company. You'll reach out to them and they can help you get that. Have the title company review that property profile with you until you learn how to do it yourself. Just call and have one of the girls review it with you so that before you go on the appointment, they can tell you if there's any liens, they can tell you if there's anything strange that you need to ask about. Sometimes what will happen is they'll say, nope, that's not me, or I don't think so, I don't have this. What we do is the title company gets a statement of information from them, and that like has social security number and all of that stuff. it really helps them to be able to make sure that we won't have any problems a couple days before close. This alleviates all of that up front. So make sure you have that property profile. I don't normally give that to the client. I don't think that we're supposed to. So I don't give that to the client. I keep that for myself, but I have it there to reference. It also shows copies of any liens on copies of any recorded documents. So you can show those to the client in that moment. You're also, I, for myself, have a little listing checklist, and I'm gonna, let me go back. We're gonna go back over here. I have a listing checklist, and I'm gonna show that checklist to you now if I can find it. Here it is. And I'll share this one with you. This is a little something that I like to take with me to a listing appointment. It is, and this is at the time I was on a team, I had a listing coordinator and a marketing coordinator. I'll be honest, right now, I am my own listing coordinator and my own marketing coordinator until you have one that you are the job, right? So these were the things that I made sure I did at the appointment. I, got photos photography scheduled, completed the listing information form, did my Avid, and we'll get into the script on that in just a second, what that looks like. Installing lock boxes, getting 2 keys. I will tell you, if you ask the client to, before the appointment, if you say, when I come, I'm going to need you to have 2 copies of a key from two copies of your keys for me. And a lot of times they will have it. They will do it. We don't have to run around going to get copies of keys. If you just ask them for it, a lot of times they will have one for you, or 2, in a lot of cases. Getting the listing document signed, ordering the property profile if it hasn't already been done, and asking for referrals. Those are the things that I was going to do at the appointment. And then all the other stuff is the stuff my team's going to do when I get back. It's also good to show somebody who's a FSBO, give them your listing checklist. This is a great little marketing piece for yourself. Make sure it has your name on it so that when you give it to them, say, hey, this is all the stuff that I do for my listings. And feel free to take it, and maybe it'll help you to get through yours. After a couple weeks, when they start to get overwhelmed and you keep checking in on them, a lot of times you're going to end up saying, hey, I can just do that stuff for you. And you start negotiating that commission piece of it, and that what they're willing to pay. And next thing you know, they're willing to pay you the 3% to get the job done. So this is also a nice piece you can use for FSBOs, but I really like this one to take with me just to make sure I get everything done on my listing appointment. We're going to go back to the listing script. Hold on, let's get to, there we go. It's going to be this one. There we go. Okay. So now we've got the listing checklist, the listing paperwork, the net sheet, another copy of that for yourself, the listing information form, and that is another form that we put together that was basically all the information you needed in order to leave with what you needed to put it in the MLS. And the reason for that was because we had a listing coordinator that would put things in the MLS for us, and then we would just go in, save it as incomplete, and we would go in and make our final edits to it. I got to the point where I just started getting used to getting all this information at the time of the appointment, and it made my life a whole lot easier. So I just continue to do it. Even I act like somebody else is going to be inputting it, and I leave with all the information. Sometimes that can make my appointment almost 2 hours long, but getting all that done up front with the client, if they can handle that amount of that length of an appointment, it can make your life way easier in the future. You've got, again, the net sheet, the listing information form, past listing sheets. If the property's been on the market before, print out those those MLS detail sheets and bring those with you so that you have them, because sometimes they will, I don't remember what I had it listed for, or I thought we didn't drop the price. If you have all that information with you, it makes life a whole lot easier. You can also get it on your phone a lot of times now with the MLSs, but it's nice to have those if you can. And then a completed seller information sheet, which is just all the info on the seller that we're going to need for our team to be able to contact them. So that's what you're bringing with you. I know that was a lot of stuff, but that's what you're bringing with you to get yourself prepared. And if any of you guys have questions or you want to make a sample packet for yourself, set a 30-minute appointment with me, come in, and I will you will leave with basically these 2 pieces. It'll be the client piece and the piece for yourself that you can just keep on your desk or keep in your files, so that you have a sample next time you need, a little template next time you need to get one ready for your client, right? So I'm happy to do that with you anytime. The next thing I want to talk about is what you're going to do on your way. You've got all your paperwork ready. It's time for the appointment. You're not running late because you're giving yourself plenty of time to make sure you've got the car filled with gas and everything's ready to go. On the way, I want you to either listen to an affirmation script or say your affirmations to yourself. One that I like to say is, this listing is mine if I choose to take it. And that just puts me in the mindset that I'm going to go in and get this listing. There's nobody else that's going to take the listing from me, and it's mine if I want it. Sometimes I choose not to take them. It's not often, but every now and again I find a client that we just don't mesh, or we can't come to agreement on something that's important to one or the other, and we decide not to work together. But in most cases, if the listing is mine, the listing is mine if I choose to take it. And then my last piece of advice is, don't take any phone calls. Don't even look at your phone if you can. Just keep it away from you. One of the things you'll see in here is it says to leave your phone in the car. And I know a lot of us don't do that. And in the summertime, it's too hot. You can't do it anyway. It just will ruin your phone. But don't even have it on vibrate. If you can, just put it on silent so that you're not tempted to look at it. The worst thing that's ever happened is that I've gotten bad news 5 minutes before I was walking into a listing appointment. And I don't even remember what it was. I can't remember if it was something personal or if it was like an escrow imploded or whatever. But I just went in with I couldn't shake it the entire time. All I could think about was, I got to get out of here and go fix that. And it's not a good place to be when you're sitting with a client trying to listen to needs and trying to uncover needs. So just make sure you're in the right mindset. And my advice is, just don't look at your phone if you don't have to. Let's see. I want to just make sure you guys are still seeing the listing presentation, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. The next thing we're going to do is, once you get to the door, first off, try to arrive a few minutes early. I think the first listing appointment I ever shadowed somebody on, I was like 2 minutes late, and it was 2 minutes. I told myself it was okay, but it wasn't. Make sure you're a little early. And I suggest arriving maybe like 5 or 10 minutes early. But what you don't want to do is knock on the door. They may come out and see you or may come to greet you, but don't show up too early. I know that when somebody comes to visit me, even when it's in the office, I need every minute leading up to the time they get there to do all the things I need to do to be able to give them my attention. So my suggestion is that you arrive a few minutes early and stand outside with your manila folder and start making notes about the outside of the house. Start making your marketing notes, kind of just like the home inspector. When he shows up, he does the outside first. Start doing the same thing. Same with pest inspector. Just start doing the same thing, making your notes. They're also a lot of times going to look out and see you and see that you're already there. The next thing is, remove your sunglasses, no matter how bright it is, no matter what time of the summer it is. Eye contact is crucial, and you want to make sure you have that in the first few seconds. We also talk about leaving your purse in the car. Like, don't bring in any personal things. Bring a briefcase or bring your portfolio or bring, a bag, but try not to make it just, for the ladies, try not to make it just a purse. I know a lot of that is like transitional stuff and you can use it both ways, and that's all fine, but just leave your personal items in the car and just bring in the things that you need for the business. I have a leather portfolio that I really like. It's just a notepad, and it's just got a nice leather cover on it, and I can slide my files into it, and it protects everything and stops them from being bent. If you're going to meet with somebody live, I'm going to suggest one of those for yourself. And then carry your listing presentation and your briefcase with a notepad and 3 pens. Make sure you bring extra pens, because the last thing you want to do is be scrambling around when you're trying to get listing documents signed. You're going to make a few notes on the exterior of the property, have your business card ready. And this gets a little detail oriented, so just bear with me on this, but we were very specific about how every single person got the same experience. So we trained our agents that they had their business card in their left hand so they could shake with their right. If you have a name tag, you want to wear your name tag on the left side, because when somebody goes to shake your hand, then it's right in their line of sight on your shoulder. So if you do wear a name tag, you want to wear it on that left side and shake with your right hand. If your appointment is at 2 o'clock, be prepared to knock on the door at exactly 2 o'clock. And when you knock on the door, ring the doorbell, and just when they open the door, take a step back. The reason for that, especially if you're male, The reason for that is you become less imposing when you take a step back. If you take a step forward, it's almost like you're trying to let yourself in before you've been invited, or even if you're just standing too close to the door, taking that step back just makes you feel less imposing and makes the person who's standing at the doorway a little more comfortable. And so that's one of our suggestions. So we'll kind of start to get into the script now. I'm going to read the first few parts here, but then I'm going to start asking you guys to read, because the last thing anybody wants is to hear me talk for an hour. And at some point, I'll have to take a breath. So we'll go ahead and get started. One of the other things I want to point out is you're going to see some places in here where we've got words that are like there's 3 dots and then it's in bold and in caps and then 3 dots. Those are embedded commands. And it's a linguistics class that we can do at one point. I'm not going to get into it today, but those are embedded commands. Like, have you ever heard a radio commercial that's like, by now, you know that you want XYZ, right? What they're really saying is by now. That's the embedded command they're giving you. I'm going to recommend we don't use by now because I think it's a little tricky. And when we get into this stuff, I always say use your powers for good and not evil. So be careful with some of these embedded commands, but you'll see them in here, and you'll also hear it's how I just kind of naturally talk now. This is not natural for me. I have read these things hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. That's why I'm able to quote them and quote them so quickly, because that's how many times it's taken me in order to get to that place. So we'll go ahead and get started. So you at the door, you ring on the doorbell, somebody comes to the door and you step back and say, hello, Mr. Seller. I'm Stephanie with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, Desert Lifestyle Properties. We had an appointment at 2 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock. May I come in? And then you pause and give them a moment. Again, some of this stuff might sound a little silly, but what you're doing in that moment is reminding them that you're on time. Reminding them we had an appointment. I'm here for the appointment. Let's get to business. And even if they may have forgotten about it, and we've all had that happen once, if you've been doing this long enough, you've had somebody forget they were meeting with you when you get there.
Yep.
Sometimes it'll give them that statement, gives them a moment to snap into the right mode where they're like, okay, come in. So it gives them that second. Once you're inside, you're going to want to shake hands with them, give them your card. Thanks for inviting me over. You have a pretty important decision to make, and I appreciate that you trust me to provide you with this important information. May we sit at the kitchen table? If they object, you're going to say, Mr. Seller, I found that with some of the paperwork involved, it can be much easier to review it at the table. And this doesn't happen often when you ask somebody to sit at their dining room table, but I was taught very early on not to sit in the living room. Don't sit on the couch. Business is done at the table. And I am going to suggest that as long as you want the client to be comfortable, and if the table's full of stuff and that's not the place to sit, it is what it is. But if you can get them to start doing what you ask, get them to start following your lead, I think it's a really good idea to start establishing those boundaries early on, or start establishing those kind of roles really early on. So once you're at the table, you're going to position yourself on one side and have them sit. If there's 2 parties, have them sit next to each other, not on either side of you. So you're going to pull out the chair, let them sit down, and hand them a pen. And what I normally do is I have a little client survey that's like, here's all the things that you like. How quickly do you want to sell? Let me see if I've got one here in front of me. How quickly do you want to sell? What will you do if you don't sell? What is the desired price for your home? How long have you lived there? What do you dislike? It's just a whole little list of things for them to, and then it says, tell me about all the great features in your house. The reason that we do this is because what'll happen is sometimes when we say, hey, with this next part of the script, I'm going to take a quick look through your house so I can see it from the eyes of a buyer, since you won't be there during showings to buyers. Trust me, it won't take long. I've done this so many times and I'll see everything that a buyer will see. I'm going to take notes, and then after you decide to list with me, you can point out all of the things in the house that we'll put in the brochure. Because sometimes what will happen is you'll get the objection from the client, oh, but I want to show you the blinds that I just installed, or oh, I want to show you the backyard. That's great. I tell you what, before I have you show me everything, I just want to look through with the first glance. And that's the next part. If they object, I know many agents will have you take them through your house and explain everything. They see the house through your eyes, not the eyes of a buyer. And part of my service to you is to be honest with you about what a buyer will see. So you can follow me if you like, or you can fill out the client survey and we can save you some time tonight. How does that sound to you? And if they really push back, it's okay. I'll be honest, I'm not always comfortable having a stranger walk through my house by themselves. So there's times where it'll happen. But in most cases, this is the place where you're starting to build some of that trust. So how do you guys feel about what we've talked about so far? I want to take just a pause before I just blow through this whole thing. How do you guys feel about what we talked about so far? Is there anything in here that you're like, oh, I'm never going to say that? Be honest with me. I want to hear it because I know that there's times where I've felt some of that too.
No, in my opinion, it's good.
Does it feel like
What you should
you
be,
could get comfortable saying it?
yeah,
I mean, I know I'm comfortable saying it because like I said, I've read it 1,000 times, or at least a couple hundred. But if there's anything in here that's a real sticking point for you guys, I want you guys to tell me about it. So make sure that you share with me if you feel like there's something in here where you're like, that's corny, I'm not going to say it, because we can talk about how you might make an adjustment to it. Any questions on anything we've covered so far?
No.
no, it's
All
good.
right. All right. Thank you guys for the verbal feedback. I appreciate it. It makes me feel like I'm not here alone.
Well, in real life, when you're sitting there, it's probably not going to be word for word, and there's going to be some changes made as you go,
Right. And that's the thing is you want to be able to have some flexibility to listen to them and to
Right.
ask those good questions. And some of those good questions are coming up. But the nice thing about the script is that once you have it embedded, you are able to come back to it every time and you don't go off on a tangent, right? Where
Right.
you come back to the office and you're like, I had a great appointment. And I'm like, awesome. Where's the listing contract? And you're like, oh, we used to fish at the same place. And we used to have, our restaurant over here on, on El Paseo is the same. We both love going there. You may have had a lot of things in common, but you didn't necessarily get the job done for them, right? So like, that's
Right.
the thing that the script will do is allow you to make sure you come back to asking for that order and coming back to what it is that they called you there to accomplish, right?
Right.
Okay, so we'll go ahead to the next part. Walking through the house, you're going to use the front of that manila folder to make some notes on the features of the property. You'll note any special features for the marketing remarks for your photographer. And a suggestion I have is not to ooh and ah. First of all, no one should be there because you should be walking through the house by yourself, so no one should be there to hear you. But just avoid oohing and awing over anything in the house. Like we don't want to get emotional with them, right? Like we want to make sure that we are remaining professional. Of course, if they have a lovely home, we're going to tell them that. And that's actually the next line here. It's you get into their needs and motivation. So you come back to the table and you're going to say, you've got a great house. Thanks for filling out that survey. Review the survey with them and go through it. And it says here to use the 7-layer method to uncover needs and determine motivation. And the 7-layer method really is anything that they filled out, any of those questions that you had for them. And again, I'll share this survey with you so you guys have a copy of it and you can edit it, make any changes to it that you want. But what you're going to do is just you're going to ask questions like, tell me about that, or what does that do for you? Or, how will that help your family? Those kind of questions are that you're going to go and you're going to ask 7 times and you're going to keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. What that's going to do is get you to the real motivation, right? And every time that you guys have a seller that's upset or a deal that's falling apart, what is the first question I ask? Why are they selling? What's the reason that they're selling? That helps us to figure out how to help them move forward or not. Because if what's happening no longer helps them, then we can help them to unravel it. But if they're just not able to overcome this obstacle, they can't see a way around it. It's our job to help them with that so they can get to the end result they want, right? And in this case, it's getting their house sold so they can move on to whatever the next chapter is that they have. If you don't know what the next chapter is, it's really hard to help them get there, right? Because you want to remind them that every time that there's a challenge of why they're doing this. Sometimes we need that reminder too, right? That's why it helps me to know what your goals are so I can kind of help keep you guys motivated as you go through. So you're just going to keep asking why. What does that do for you? Tell me more about that. What does that do for your family? How does that help you? How does that affect you? Keep asking those kind of questions until you really feel like you have the root of the problem or the root of the desire and the root of the reason that they're selling. After that, the next thing you're going to say is, Mr. Seller, I have a great deal of respect for you and your investment of time. In fact, we only have 3 goals for our meeting today. We're going to review your motivation to sell this house and agree on a price that will cause it to sell. We'll take a moment and I'll answer questions you may have. And 3, we'll decide tonight whether you choose to work with me, and I'll decide if I choose to take your listing. Does that make any sense? And if they comment, you can say it doesn't happen, you know, like they'll say, what do you mean if you choose not to take my listing? Well, that doesn't happen a lot, but for instance, you may not choose to set a price that will allow your house to sell, or you may choose me to pay marketing that I know will not help you sell your house. Fair enough? And it's interesting that this choose me piece of it, like, again, I know that may not be how you speak, but you're embedding a command for them to choose you. And it's an important piece. So if you really feel like you need to take that out, you're more than welcome. Just understand what you're taking out. It's not integral to the structure of the sentence, but it's integral to the overall message you're trying to deliver. So like I said, we'll get into neurolinguistics at another time, but that's part of what that's there for. And so this just kind of sets the precedent with them that we're here interviewing each other. I am of the mindset that we are on our best behavior on a first date, and this is the first date. It's never going to get better than this, right? So if you guys can't come to agreement here, it's best for us to just make that decision whether or not we want to work together now, right? And that's really what this is. It's reminding them that not only are they interviewing you, but you're interviewing them as well. And so the next part is getting into the 3 critical questions. Is there somebody who will read that part for me so I'm not reading this whole thing? I can make that a little bigger. Ken, do you want to read the 3 critical questions?
Yeah, today I have 3 critical questions for you. Do you really want to sell your house? Are you willing to price your house to sell? Do you want me to sell it for you?
And that's a trial close. If they say yes, stop. Like, stop what you're doing. If at any point they're like, yeah, we want you to sell the house, great, get the listing paperwork out.
Sign here.
Yeah, exactly. If they say, do you want me to sell it for you? The next thing and they say yes, I say, okay, great. Let's get into pricing. And then I'll ask, do you have any questions about what we do to market homes? Right. And a lot of times the answer is no, or sometimes they'll say, okay, what do you do? And you can show them. But if they say no, move on. Like, right. don't force them to have a presentation that they don't want. Like, they've already agreed to it. Just go ahead and move forward, right? So once the close is done, we don't keep presenting. We stop and we just move forward with getting the paperwork signed. Right. Okay, so Daniel, do you mind reading for me Price the Property?
Sure. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, before I review our marketing systems with you, I find that if we can agree on a price, none of this matters. So to save you time, let's review what the market is saying about the value of your house today.
Right. And so this is where I will bring in a CMA, and I will bring in the total market overview is that, like I said, the thing that we used to use, but I'll bring in a CMA and I'll bring in 3 agent detail reports or 3 public detail reports so that I'm showing them the 3. And I start comparing the 3 of them and I ask them to place, where would you place your house in here, right? And if you were buying, which one would you purchase? And I let them go through that process. Sometimes I've started doing this at a lot of appointments. I did it for a family member where I brought my laptop in and I was like, hey, why don't you drive? And I put the laptop in front of her and we pulled up everything in her subdivision. And she's like, oh, well, that one's only a 2-bedroom. I was like, okay, go past that. Well, that one doesn't have this. Okay, go past that. Next thing I knew, she was like, oh, I think I need to price it between these 2. And so maybe sometimes bring your laptop in, let them look at the market, let them see that information. Once you put it right in front of them, it makes it really simple. Daniel, do you want to keep reading where it says people are being told the market is hot?
Yeah, absolutely. So people are being told the market is hot and everything is selling. Let me give you a reality. As a professional, I watch the market daily. Today there are, and then, X amount of homes on the market in your neighborhood, area, or city. Last week, 10 sold. That means 17 didn't sell that are still on the market.
Right. And so the next part is, so you're becoming aware that we're entering a competition, right? And what we need to do today is agree on a price, one that will make certain that your house is one of the small number of houses that are actually selling and not sitting on the market, losing money day after day after day. And, we're not really in a market where we're losing money. So maybe tweak that a little bit. It's going to depend on what the comps are in that particular neighborhood.
Right.
But and in a lot of cases, they're still going up. But there's never a bad time to sell. The market is what the market is, right? You have to look at what you're going to accomplish and what you're going to move on to. And that's where some of that motivation can come into play. Ken, do you want to read the next part where it says, now let's look?
Now let's look at how you're going to win that competition, okay? Let's look at what we're competing against and what the buyers will be choosing from.
Go ahead and read that next sentence too.
The average 3-bedroom home in Rancho Mirage is selling for $950,000. At this comparative market analysis demonstrates homes similar to yours in this neighborhood are selling in the $900,000 range.
Right. And then that's when you're going to show them the 3 CMAs. And I'm going to suggest, I know comparative market analysis and desert area MLS or multiple listing service, they can be little tongue twisters, and we use the acronyms, but to speed things up for ourselves, but don't use them with clients. MLS doesn't mean anything to a client. We call it multiple listing service. Comparative market analysis is a CMA to us, but it's not to a client. So I can even get a little tongue tied on those sometimes, but do get comfortable with them, because I think you have to be careful with using those acronyms with clients. They don't understand it. So the next thing we do is we pull those 3 CMAs out, or those 3 agent detail summaries, and we let them take a look at it, and you demonstrate the current value and with this exercise where it says, now I need you to put your buyer hat on for a moment and think about the time when you bought this house. Take a look at these 3 homes in your neighborhood, and if you had to choose one house, which one would you buy? Why did you choose that one? And then you say, I understand. So you see, buyers are like you. They buy the house that they see has the best value for what they want and need. So based on these comparable houses, this one is priced at X, this one is priced at Y, and this one is priced at Z. Where do you feel we should enter the competition so that your home is positioned on the market to outperform all of the other properties for sale? Right? We generally know that it's like that like you need to be in like the bottom 20% of the prices in the neighborhood to like be the next one to sell. Condition is important too, but we know that those are that next home to sell. So you really want to treat this as it is a competition. What's the competition? We don't just want to look at what's sold recently. We want to look at what's active on the market as well, and where are we going to position ourselves to be the next house to sell, right? Otherwise, you have to wait for those other houses to sell before yours is the best and hope nothing else comes on the market that's better. Right. So that's a good way to kind of leverage that conversation if someone's having a real challenge with it. And then the last part is you ask the question, Mr. Seller, can you sell your house for $900,000? This is a really powerful question, and I can't say it enough, that when you tell them what the value needs to be, and again, we have to be careful with that, because I always say you like give a range. If you're up against other agents and you give the wrong price, you've given the wrong price forever. If you win the listing and you've given the wrong price, you were wrong forever. Give a little bit of a range, and if you can hone in, or just say, here's where I think we need to put it, depending on what other properties are at the value, or the value in the neighborhood. The next question is, can you sell your house for that? Because they may say, I want to get 975, and I'm like, okay, but it looks like, I don't make the market, I just interpret it, and based on the information in front of us, it looks like your house will yield 900. Can you sell it for that? And if they say yes, then we move on to the next piece, onto the close. Jeff, do you want to read the close for me? Are you able to unmute yourself where you're at? Or Randy, either one of you, since I've called so much on Ken and Daniel.
I can do it.
Awesome. Go ahead and read it for me, Randy.
The paperwork part or the close?
The close.
Okay. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's sign the contract so my team can get straight to work getting your house sold. Then I have to move this. I can't read the last part. We'll price watch weekly and make the necessary price corrections to respond to the message the market delivers.
Right. And okay, here's what we're going to do. That line was given to me by somebody I was on a team with. And he asked me one day, he said, so let me ask, if you had cancer, if you were at the doctor's office and he said, Steph, I've got bad news for you. You've got cancer. What would you like to do? That's not what you want to hear, right? You want him to walk in and say, okay, you've got cancer. Here's what we're going to do. I want to know you have a plan and I want to feel confident in it. And that's what this statement really does. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's sign the contract so my team can go straight to work. We've already got the plan and we know what we're going to do. Now we're going to lay out some of this paperwork for them so that we can get through that and have everything we need. Like I said, I like to leave with everything I need in order to be able to go put the listing on the MLS. And all I'm waiting for is pictures at that point. But how do you guys feel about that close? I'd like to get some feedback. How do you feel about that close? Does that feel smooth to you, or does it feel contrived, or what do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
It feels a little contrived to me. I try to kind of feel out the client, know what their personality is like. We know that we're going to do this. I usually try to figure out what their week is going to be like and how all of this can be done as easily as possible with what their week is and the things in front of them. And but the may sound a little contrived, but the content is good.
Right. And I do agree with you that what we deal with in the desert a lot, and I want to say, Daniel, where you've sold in the past, you've had a lot, and this much more like our high desert offices, where they have buyers and sellers that need to move, and they're moving families, and this is the house that they live in. It's a lot of times the only house that they have. When we're in the desert, a lot of our clients are here on vacation when they're here, and we are getting them in between barbecues and golf, right? And hanging at the pool and other things like that. And there's also lots of stuff that they want to do to the houses. A lot of times, what do we all do before we sell our house? We fix it and make it as nice as it could possibly be, right? So there's a lot of times there's stuff they want to do. It's not always ready. And I completely get that. I get that we need to kind of figure out. That's also why I really like that listing schedule that I showed you guys, because we can ask them, hey, we can get some of this stuff started. And then if we need to pause, tell me, and we can pause if it's 2 weeks so that you can get the rest of the flooring done, or you can get the pool finished, or the backyard, or whatever the things are that they want to do, or go on your vacation that you're going to go on and not be available for any signatures for 3 weeks. All of those things that we kind of have to coordinate when we're dealing with this stuff. There's definitely timing, and this is not, it looks like a one size fits all, but obviously it's not. We got to make some adjustments here and there. So I would suggest this is for those appointments where you go in and know this close anyway is for you, where you go into the appointment and they're ready to go. If you've really uncovered good motivation and they're truly an A seller, somebody who's ready, willing, and able to put that house on the market, I think this close is appropriate. If they're not quite there and it's like there's still things that need to be done, that's just your follow-up homework, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So for the paperwork part, the next thing I ask is, do you have any questions about what we do to market homes? Like I mentioned earlier, if they say yes, I pull out the marketing piece of my listing presentation. I don't have those slides up here, but in all of our office, we have the marketing slicks that has like the list of 62 services we do, and some of the places where we put our listings, and the list hub graphic that shows where all of the stuff is pushed out to. You can use some of that stuff, and there's also a few pieces in Moxie that you'll be able to use to show them kind of what we do to market homes. It's also why I like taking those leftover pieces that I have when I have postcards that I've done. I like having them so that I can show them to people in the listing presentation. And then if you're sitting there in front of them and you're going to do the paperwork right then and there, you complete the listing agreement and all disclosures with the client, explaining each one. And then I leave the TDS, the AVID, and the SPQ for last. If you're not in front of the client and you're going to do this digitally, use Breeze. It's the best. It's the easiest way to do the disclosures. But if you're in front of them, I normally will take the TDS, the SPQ, and the AVID, and I will separate them out. And I ask, who's faster? Whoever's faster gets the TDS because it's a little long and more tedious. The other one gets the SPQ, and they can go through them together. And then what I do is say, I'm going to go do my visual inspection on the property that I'm required to do, and I leave the table. Again, this doesn't apply if you're not in front of them, but if you are in front of them, what this little process does is it stops them from asking you how to fill out the TDS and SPQ. If there's two of them and you give each one of the document and you leave the table to go take your notes and do your things, they ask each other where the fan vents are and if they have 220 and all those little nitpicky questions that are on those documents. And then you come back, and if you go through it yourself to make sure you've reviewed it, make sure they've filled everything out, and you don't change it for them, but you can, if they didn't select sewer or septic, you want them to pick one of the two. One of those two options needs to be selected. And don't guess. If they don't know, then we need to figure it out. And there's ways to do that. They can call the water district and find out if they're connected. But you leave the table, you allow them to ask each other those questions, and then you come back, you review all of them, and then you may have them sign all of those last 3 documents. Once all of that is done, we used to snap a few photos if you need to hit the MLS right away, but we don't do that anymore. Everybody schedules photography now. Remember, like when we used to carry like little, not even on our phone, it was like an extra little camera that you would just have in your pocket or in your bag to be able to snap photos of houses. Yeah, Daniel, you don't remember that? He's like, I wasn't around then.
No, I got licensed in 2012. That was when the law allowed me to, because I was 18. But it was I remember taking pictures with my phone, but not an extra like Kodak camera.
Yeah, we had, and your SIM card would get full, and you'd have to go buy another one. Oh my goodness!
I still have more pictures on my phone of houses than anything else.
Exactly.
They had newer cameras than Kodak.
Yeah, I know, right? And he said Kodak, it hurt my heart a little bit. I was like,
no, I didn't mean that anyway.
One
of my Christmas presents when I was 8, my dad gave me a little Kodak camera with a home printing thingamajiggy, and I thought that was the coolest thing when I was 8.
I love it. All right, and then
he was the Kodak camera that cracked me up. I had to come on. That was so funny. Like, guys, sorry I couldn't respond earlier. I was in the car and my phone had fallen into the floorboard. So
that's okay. Don't worry about it.
But when you said Kodak camera, I started to chuckle out loud. I had to say hi.
I know, right? And then
they had Canons and Olympus and
right. He's like, hey, don't like pigeonhole us. All right, Ken? Okay, so the last thing is you don't want to forget the SCLM if you're going to use the coming soon strategy. That is written into the listing agreement now. So you just want to discuss that piece of the contract with the client. And then you're going to complete the listing info form in the checklist that I showed you guys earlier that you put in your packet. So you do that, and when you leave, you have everything you need to hand the documents over to your TC and get that listing put into the MLS, and you're basically just waiting for your photographer to come. So I want to ask you guys, we only have a few minutes left. This did take just about an hour, but I want to ask you guys for any ahas, how you feel about this, if there's any part of it that you're like, I can't buy into it, or any parts that you loved. Give me some feedback. Randy, I'll start with you because I think you're unmuted. Oh, wait, no, you are muted.
I'm
we'll
here.
Start with you anyway.
Say that again.
I just was curious. I want to hear from you guys any ahas, if you got what you got out of this, or if there's anything that you like definitely want to take away and use, or anything maybe you feel like you would leave behind.
It's always good to have a refresher. I mean, we have Greenhouse, we have Moxie now. Moxie has great presentation.
Yes.
Great presentation, but it's always good to have other things in the back of your head. You get there, maybe their internet's not working, things like that, and you've been so focused on one thing. So it's good to have a backup and be able to sit down no matter what the situation is.
Right. Personal hotspots are the only thing to rely on as far as I'm concerned. Jeff, did you have a comment?
No, I just wanted to say, like, I really enjoyed today's class. So thank you, Stephanie. Like, I mean, was there any aha moments? No, but there's some of those moments like, I know that, and I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Right.
I know that.
Sometimes it helps to have it put back in front of you again, because I agree. There's been a time where I had this listing presentation script, and one of my teammates was like, "So when you go in, you just wing it? Like you just don't use the script that you force all of us to use?" And I was like, "You're right." And I had another agent who was brand new to the team and came to me one day and said, "I have a listing appointment tonight. I need you to go with me." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I have another appointment. I can't." And I couldn't rearrange it. And she goes, "What do I do?" I printed this out for her. I handed it to her and I said, "I want you to read this 15 times tonight. And I want you to read it out loud and say it out loud." The next day she came back and she was like, "I got the listing." And I said, "Great. How'd it go?" And she was like, how did you know that would work? And I was like, I didn't. I just figured if you read it 15 times and didn't have it at least halfway memorized, like we have bigger problems than that. And she started laughing. So, I mean, honestly, just reading it over and over again, really, the repetition can really help. And it can help you to internalize this stuff so it doesn't feel so hokey saying it. Once you internalize it and have your own tonality, it can help a whole lot. Ken, was there anything for you that really stood out?
Yeah, everything sounded, it's good. It's, in my opinion, I could use this.
Great.
So, yeah, but I'm gonna have to go over this, like you said, 15 times and try to remember the main points of it. And so,
Well, and I'm going to suggest that you guys are script partners with one another. Reach out to somebody and start reviewing this together. We can do it in the
Right.
office too. If you guys all want to, book time with me, and you'll have all of us come in and we can go over. As a matter of fact, maybe we'll do that one day when we do a class live. I'm going to do a
yeah,
couple
that's a
more
good
of those
idea.
on Zoom so that people can join in from anywhere. But we'll do a live one where we do a listing presentation script practice and just go over it with each other. But yeah, script partners is important. I think I like starting my day with those conversations. It's a good way to get warmed up for the calls that you have to make.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, how about you, Daniel? Was there anything that was a big aha for you, or anything that you think you'll take away from this?
Well, I know most of this, but it's like Jeff said, it's a good refresher.
Good.
There's a couple things that you put in there, like, oh, I used to do it, but not anymore. And like I kind of went away from it, and then now I need to get back into it.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, because for so long we put a listing on the market and you had 18 offers on it. That's not the case now. You guys are having
No.
to sharpen these skills again, right? This is that tool that's gotten a little dull in the toolbox, and we got to take it out and hone it a little bit
Yeah.
before we start to try to use it again. I agree
Yeah.
with you. I sat down and started to do some of this myself because I'm getting more people reaching out to me and wanting to have conversations about selling, and I wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be. So that was the reason kind of behind some of this. But I know in the last class you guys asked for it, so I hope you all got something out of it today. I appreciate those of you who were able to join us not in person, but live, so that I could have some good conversation for this recording. I appreciate you guys and all your input. Thank you so much. I will get this recording sent out to you probably it'll either be today, but most likely tomorrow is when I'll get it sent out, along with all the attachments that I included today.
Cool.
So you guys can save those and make them your own.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Have a great day.
Bye, Steph.
Bye.
All right, bye.